Welcome to Conversations with a Stranger, a podcast where I get up close and personal with people from all corners of the world. On each episode, my guests will share their stories, experiences, and perspectives that will give us an inside look in their lives. So come along on this journey as we explore the world through these incredible conversations. So what brings you to Omegle tonight? What do you got going on?
I'm a Christian. I put in religion on the filter. So I like to talk to people about why we can trust the Bible, who Jesus is, and what the gospel message is.
So, you're an older person. Are you a preacher yourself?
No.
I'm in my later 30s, so I think I could say I'm an older person as well. It's just I wondered if you were a preacher.
No, I'm 30. I'm 33. So, but for Omegle land, that's probably fair. I don't come here often.
Okay.
It's probably been a few months actually.
Do you find interesting conversations, or is there more people trolling you?
No, I've only been on here a handful of times, but I don't think can say that I've ever been trolled. It's pretty easy to avoid the trolls, I think.
What do you have to say to someone who's on the fence about if they are, say, an agnostic type person, or they're wanting to believe in Jesus, but they're kind of on the fence about, did you guys get it right?
Oh, sure. I would be interested to know what their roadblocks are first. Like, what are the biggest gaps? Because one of the things I hear most often is that people will say that, I think the Bible probably had some good things in it at an earlier point, but I'm not really sure we can trust it now because it's been translated so many times through the centuries. So if somebody was if they said that they're truly an agnostic and not a diehard atheist, I would be curious on what those hurdles are, what the things are that they're wanting to believe, but can't get past.
For me personally, it's like you said, it's sort of like the telephone game. For me, I believe some type of something happened that created this universe. We don't know who snapped the fingers to make it happen, so that's why I do believe there is a bigger, higher power out there. There's just so many on this planet currently. Who's to say who got it right?
Yeah, well, I would say two things. I would say that it actually isn't like the telephone game. So when we make our translations today, like I've got the LSB here, the Legacy Standard, which is one I enjoy using. When we translate these, we translate from the original language, actually, and not from translations of translations of translations. So when we make our translations, we're translating from the Koine Greek that the original authors wrote. And we have about 5,800 manuscripts in the Koine Greek, in the original language alone, that we use to make those translations. So the telephone game, while I understand why a lot of people have that impression, it's actually not the case. And then I forgot what my second point was. The differentiating factor I would point to is Jesus Christ. So I believe that the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as a starting point, I believe that they reliably record the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And obviously, the Bible and the Quran can't both be true because they have contradicting teachings. They have contradicting things about Jesus, about who God is. And so I am not a Muslim because I believe that the evidence is that the Gospels are reliable, and so I trust what they say, if that makes sense.
As far as the Muslims and their story of Muhammad, do you believe the Jesus Christ version more?
Yeah, I do. So Muhammad taught that in the Quran, which they wouldn't say Muhammad was writing. They would say that Muhammad was given the Quran from heaven. That Jesus wasn't actually crucified, that it was a deception done to the eyewitnesses and the apostles. So I think what's interesting is that Muhammad knew what a strong case there was for the resurrection and the fact that we can trust the eyewitnesses, the recorded eyewitnesses. But he has to say, that the Muslims would say, that Allah did a deception. Some of them even speculate that they changed the face of the man on the cross to appear like Jesus, but it wasn't really him. And so there's 600 years there between the crucifixion and the life of Muhammad and when he received the Quran. And there's no evidence that that's based on it. He just shows up 600 years later and say, hey guys, no, this is what it is.
Yeah.
But rather, I would say the evidence is that Jesus really was crucified. Not only that, he really did rise from the grave. And so there's a tension there that's really unreconcilable between Islam and Christianity. Not to mention that Christians believe that Jesus is God, and the Quran teaches that God would never take on the form of a man, that he wouldn't stoop so low as to do something like that. So
I appreciate you explaining all of that to me. I'm into the history side of the Christianity because I was a big Roman sort of, I love Roman history and Constantine and things like that. So it's interesting for me to understand where it came from in the beginning and how it got so big so quickly. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, I hope that's interesting. I felt like I was rambling there a little bit.
No, you speak very well, so it's not hard to listen to you. Do you have any hobbies outside of religion?
Oh, sure. I enjoy music. I play guitar. I like outdoor stuff. I have to say that, so I work in IT full time. So I'm not what we would call like I'm not in vocational ministry, meaning that it's not the way I make my living. So my hobby time is spent on my faith and studying the Bible and stuff, because I don't do it, Monday through Friday. So it's in my spare time that I'm doing that stuff. So that takes up a lot, but I've played guitar and saxophone since I was a kid.
Have you had a chance to go on any, when I was a child, they called them missions?
Yeah. Yeah, when I was a teenager, I went to Mexico. When I was an adult, I went to Mexico on a trip, on a missions trip. But I do evangelism today, which is like little missions for about 2 hours. I'll go out and set up my table in a public park.
Okay.
So that's not a missions trip, but that is a type of mission work per se.
It takes a lot of confidence and also a lot of faith to sit there at that table and talk to random strangers about their religion, huh?
It does, but one of the biggest things that I've learned is that it's okay for somebody to best you, I like apologetics and I like defending the Christian faith, but I also have to realize that there are a lot of people out there smarter than me, and then a lot of people out there that know more than me. So I'm comfortable enough in my faith to get into an engagement to where maybe somebody ties me up in knots or brings me a new piece of information that I haven't considered yet. And I'm just going to go back and I'm going to look into it, and I'll be that more equipped to go back out next time.
In your 30s, have you always been a religious person, like your whole life, or is that something that's come around within your teenage years?
Good question. Interesting question. So I grew up in the church, but I remember there was a time. I remember a specific point when I was a teenager. I was working in a restaurant, and somebody asked me if I was a Christian or something, and I remember asking. I was like, "Oh yeah, I believe all that stuff, but I don't really live like it." And I think I was comfortable being a cultural Christian, but it wasn't really real until I was about 26, which is the point that I would say that I came to saving faith. And that was kind of through, there's a YouTube channel called Ask Cliff, and I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but I listened to him defend the reliability of the Bible and the historicity of Jesus and the historicity of the resurrection. And I was fascinated, and it intrigued me. And it was through that I heard somebody actually making a case that I had never heard before, like defending this. And it was through that my faith really became real. And then I became intrigued, and I wanted to learn more about why I could trust the Bible. And then I wanted to learn more about what it meant to really be a Christian. And so I say my faith came to life. I became truly a Christian when I was 26 years old.
Have you heard the 3 L's argument?
Yeah, liar, lunatic, or Lord.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks volumes, really, if you think about it. There's only 3 outcomes if you read the New Testament.
That's true. I think it's true. I think it's a good point. Because, okay, so number one, if we can agree, or if we can just kind of take it off the table that the Gospels are reliable, right? The New Testament generally is reliable.
Mm-hmm.
Then what do we do with what Jesus said? So he either lied about who he said he was, or like intentionally lied,
Mm-hmm.
or he was just a straight up crazy person, had no idea what he was really claiming. Or number 3, what he was saying was true. And I choose that number 3 option because I would say that his resurrection validated what he was teaching. So had he taught all that stuff about being God and all this, crucified and then crickets after that, then we got nothing.
It's hard to believe that his apostles would carry on after his crucifixion if what they saw wasn't real, what they believed wasn't real.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll take a step further. And the reason because of that is because what did the apostles gain? And the answer is nothing. They gain
lost
power.
Everything.
They didn't gain money. Yeah, they didn't gain influence. They didn't gain women. Instead, almost all of them died excruciating deaths, except for John, who died in exile on an island. He kind of got it off easy. But he didn't gain anything. And I would contrast that. So Joseph Smith with Mormonism. I reject Mormonism, but he claimed to be a prophet in the 19th century America, but he gained a lot. He gained a lot of power. He gained a lot of influence. He gained a lot of women. So now I'm not saying that necessarily means that he's false, but it means that we could say perhaps it's why he did those things. That is not a case that can be made for the original apostles of Jesus Christ.
Do you think it hurts the religion to have so many different sects of like Christianity, and it's so many, like there's Baptist and there's Free Will Baptist and Protestant, and there's all these different names to them, and you kind of get lost in what kind of Christian am I?
Yeah, it can make things challenging for sure. And would I prefer that we all just absolutely believe the same thing? Yeah, absolutely right, for sure. But I think the big difference is that with the Baptists and the Free Will Baptists and the Presbyterians and all those guys, I have unity with them. We agree on the core tenets of the faith, which is the triune God, the life, death of resurrection, justification by faith, which means that I'm saved not by deeds or works. I'm not working to earn my salvation, but I have faith and I'm justified, made righteous before God at that point, and I do good things later as a reaction to that. So in one sense, we're unified by that. So when I go out and do evangelism, I go to a Baptist church, but I'll go out with my Presbyterian friends, and I actually appreciate when folks ask us that question because it gives me a chance to kind of explain that a little bit. Say, hey, we're actually part of the universal church. The Greek word is the ecclesia, and we're all part of that, even if we have secondary differences. But ultimately, I think the Bible is God's inerrant, inspired word. But we are sinful, fallen creatures. So at the end of the day, we are not always going to come to a perfect agreement on what it teaches. But those core things, I think it teaches plainly, and we do have agreement over those.
So what have been your biggest lessons you've learned in life so far?
My biggest lessons that I've learned in life so far. Let me take a breath and pause on that for just a second. Gosh, probably the value of so in death and just in general, life in general. So funerals are not necessarily more tragic when you lose someone that you love, but the true tragedy comes from losing someone that loved you. So I think the most value in life that we can build is by surrounding ourselves with people that care about us, that invest in us, that love us ultimately. And not every friendship is going to be that way. And some friendships are kind of temporal and they go by the wayside, but every now and then people will come along. If you're hanging out with the right crowds, I'd say that really want to invest in you. And it's those people that can really change your life for the positive in ways that you really couldn't expect before.
That was really beautiful. It's not really who you loved that dies. It's the people that loved you that hurt the most when they pass away. Yep. Both of my parents passed away before they turned 50.
Oh, wow.
And I've lost many people that I loved, but they didn't love me back, and I didn't recognize that they were gone. But when I lose people I love, it tears you apart, really. It leaves that real big hole in your heart.
Yeah. Still not easy, though. I mean, losing somebody that you loved.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that is easy to do, but man, when I had someone pass away that I wasn't really that close with in our family. It was like a great aunt, and I would see her a couple times a year, but she died unexpectedly of an aneurysm. And as she was in the hospital and they were trying to figure out what, if she was going to live or die, in her wallet, she had a picture of me and my sister from when we were in kindergarten. And it was just like, in that moment, it was like, oh my goodness, this person that is dying and would go on to die cared about me for years. And it just, we just kind of talked about, it was just this realization that somebody is going away that cared about you in a profound way, and that person's not going to be there anymore. So
I really miss, now that you mention it, seeing those old faded wallet pictures. Like growing up, yeah. My dad had pictures in his wallet, my mom in her pocketbook, and it's just not something you see anymore because everything is digital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't even know if they make wallets with like picture holders anymore.
So how do you define success for yourself?
Success for myself. Well, I'm certainly not after money, though I'm fortunate to afford the means of a comfortable life. But I want to be impactful to others. I want to make a difference for others, and specific to me, I want to help disciple others in the Christian faith to grow, to know who Jesus is, and I hope that they would go on to do the same. So if I can see somebody that I've had an impact on turn around and have an impact on someone else, that's success. And that could be in my children, that could be a friend of mine, or perhaps a younger guy that I'm kind of mentoring. I've heard somebody say that before, this kind of comes to mind, that that you raised your children well, not in the way that they turn out, but in the way your grandchildren turn out.
Right.
And so I guess it's looking for that third generation impact, second or third, however you would word that, impact. So, I don't want to be, I don't need to be this big evangelist like Billy Graham and fill stadiums of tens of thousands of people, but if I can be meaningful to a few and make a meaningful difference to a few, I think I'll be satisfied with that. And that would be success.
Yeah, you want that to compound for sure and carry on even after you're gone. Do you enjoy mentoring? Is that something that you've enjoyed?
Yeah, but so I'm 33, so I think I'm really just getting into this like mentoring phase to where I have enough life experience to where, it might be of something of value to someone else that is not quite there yet. So there are two people I can think of, and I won't name any names, but that I've had the opportunity to turn around, invest in, because it's easy for me to say, oh, these are my mentors, or these people have mentoring influences on me. But it is kind of like just a shocking moment to step back and say, whoa, I'm doing this now for someone else.
Yeah.
What an opportunity that is. So I forgot what
it's a lot of pressure as well. Not only opportunity, but pressure to have someone trust you enough to believe what you're saying to be, this is the way you need to go.
Yeah. And I want them to understand that I genuinely care about them.
Do you have a bucket list?
Not too specifically. I would love to visit Israel one day, Jerusalem, see the real places that I read about in the Bible and movies and books and things like that. That's probably perhaps one of my top items. But even that's not too far-fetched. Like, I can accomplish that relatively, within the next decade. I just have kids now, and so that makes things a little more difficult, but that's a very feasible goal. love to visit Africa someday. I was supposed to go to Africa on a mission trip, but then COVID happened, and nixed that. So I guess I don't really have a bucket list, but when I think of things that like I really want to do, visiting Israel is high on that list.
Is there a reason why you haven't? You just kind of life got in the way?
Well, so like I said, I only came to saving faith at 26, and so my interest in Israel and biblical things really has only been around for the past 7-8 years or so. And within that time frame, I've gotten married and have had children, and
life definitely
which are all wonderful, but it's just priorities right now. So I'm sure I'll have an opportunity. I just have to be patient, and that opportunity will come.
All right, last question here before I go.
All right.
What advice would you offer someone going through a difficult period right now?
Read God's word, number one. Dig into scripture, pray, which I cannot be so good about myself. I believe that the Bible does teach that God works out all things for the counsel of his will, for those according to his will, for those that love him. There are hard things that we go through. They're not fun and perhaps even ugly, but God may use those circumstances to draw ourselves closer to him. And I'll give you a direct example. I had a situation recently, and I was dreading it. I knew it was coming. I was going to have to navigate this tough thing. It was not good. Nobody would have called it good in, just a general sense. But it drove me to my knees in prayer. It drove me to the throne of grace to talk to God. And that was good. So I believe that there's good in all things. And I mean that seriously, all things. Though it may not always have that appearance of what we generally look for in good, if it drives us closer to God, if it drives us to a more intimate relationship with him, there is a good there that comes with it. So,
are you happy? Are you happy to see things like God's Not Dead become more mainstream?
Yeah, so Christian media, there's some good stuff out there. I saw God's Not Dead, that movie. I thought it was pretty good. It was kind of hokey, though. All that most movies like that are gonna have.
But any attention to the faith, I believe, is a good, especially in this day and age, where
anything that's gonna help me, especially start conversations about Jesus, there's gonna be good from it. But like there was that He Gets Us campaign that was really big around the Super Bowl. Still kind of big, I guess, but I had some issues with the He Gets Us campaign because it kind of emphasizes. I don't think it's a big deal to put Jesus on a Super Bowl commercial and be like, hey, Jesus was a refugee, Jesus did all that. Because generally I think people find that appealing. People like that Jesus.
Yeah.
But to say that, hey, Jesus is king, he's Lord of all, there is no other, now that not everybody's so fond of. So while I think that there's going to be good things that come from the He Gets Us campaign, certainly more conversations about Jesus, I thought it was kind of an easy thing to do and not, like, oh gosh, Jesus is going to be in the Super Bowl. It's like, yeah, well, in a really kind of softy way.
Yes, but that's something that never would have happened. This Super Bowl was the first, right? And that's changed for me. That's changed in the good way, I believe.
That's true. Yeah.
So I appreciate your time, man. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
All right, man. I'm subbing. I found your channel. I'm gonna sub.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You'll definitely be up there.
When do you think you'll post it? I'm just curious.
Probably earlier tonight, or later tonight. I mean, honestly.
Well, I have a channel too. It's ironically enough, it's called Conversations with Christians. Oh, okay. I'm not recording. This is not for that, but and I have a Facebook page called Conversations with Christians. So if you post it, I'll plug it too.
Okay, perfect. I've wrote down your page, and I will go sub to you right away.
All right, man. Well, have a good night, man. I enjoyed the chat.
Thank you. You as well. That was another episode of Conversations with a Stranger. Please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment letting me know what you think. I do hope you enjoyed the episode, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.